Introducing Xbox One.
When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game.
Xbox, go home. TV.
Games such as Call of Duty, Ghosts, FIFA, and Madden.
Call of Duty.
PS4 gamers that aren't PS Plus members will be able to enjoy the single-player games for free.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is the beginning of my E3 coverage, and I have to apologise, folks, it is late. I went to my girlfriend during E3. I didn't realise it was on because I was kind of bummed out that I wasn't going, so I kind of blocked it from my mind. And I've had to do the Last of Us guide before I could get this out, but this is, the beginning of these. And I'm going to try not to make them too long because I don't want them to be 40-minute fucking debates on, the technicalities and the nuance of things that I can cover in the future. So what this is going to be is some brief overviews of my feelings on the press conferences, and then I'm going to go into details on separate videos about specific games. The games that I felt looked good, the games that I felt looked like they deserved to be covered, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to be beginning with the Sony press conference. No favoritism or real reason for me to begin with Sony. It's just the first one I took notes for when I was preparing to make this video. So I used a website to give me a rundown of what was released in what order and what have you, because I didn't want to watch through the press conferences again because they were long, and I did watch them all live, so I watched them all, I got responses on them, but that was like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, so I don't trust my memory to remember everything. I remember the things that stood out, I just don't remember everything that was announced. So enough of this procrastination. I'll begin with the first thing that I've got on my list, which is the Vita games. So at the beginning of the press conference, they came out with full force, kind of speccing the future for the Vita. The Vita's been, I love handhelds, and I totally want to get a PSP. I'm not sure about a Vita, because they're pretty fucking expensive, and the games just aren't really there yet. But they've mentioned that the next future for the Vita is going to have fidelity between the console and the machine. They've also said that there's going to be a very large amount of games for it. I think they said like 100 and odd games or something. I'm paraphrasing here and probably paraphrasing wrong, but this is not the main focus of the Sony press conference for me. They just mentioned that the Vita was going to be getting some attention, which is nice because I love handhelds and I want to own a handheld, and I want companies to give me a reason to want to own a handheld. And as it stands, there's just not enough for me personally, and that is entirely preferential. You might think they're amazing, I don't. But some of the games that were mentioned, there's a new Killzone game on it, and I saw this Killzone game and I thought it was the one for the PS4, and I nearly died because it had the worst fucking HUD I have ever seen in my entire life. And I remember it vividly when I saw this because I was holding a laptop in my girlfriend's kitchen while she was cooking us dinner, and I was stood with her, and I was complaining like a whiny bitch because it looked fucking awful. It was clunky, it was massive, it was this like baby blue colour. It was the worst HUD I've ever seen. So that game I would never touch because that fucking HUD looked ugly as tits. But the luxury is, if you play it on the hardest difficulty, they generally remove the HUD. But the other game that was on there was Destiny of Spirits that I saw at E3, and this was kind of funny to me because I got a comment from a guy who mentioned that this is like a sequel to Demon's Souls, or people have been postulating that it had something to do with Demon's Souls, because in the description for the game it mentions souls, demons, and the Nexus, or a Nexus. So I got this really interesting and intriguing message like, oh, it's going to be this, and it's going to be this, it's going to be so good. And it turns out it's like a turn-based strategic RPG that has absolutely nothing to do with the Soul series. So whoever was getting excited about that essentially got a big pile of shit laid on the chest, because I didn't think it looked like anything special. It looked like fucking Final Fantasy Tactics, and I've already played those games to death, so I'm not interested at all. Like, it didn't sell me on anything at that point. But Sony then went on to speak about PS3 games. They went to say that the PS3 is still going to be alive because it's a good machine and it's still got a lot of life left in it. They went on to say The Last of Us is coming out, which has come out and it's fantastic. Obviously Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be coming out, and they're going to get some exclusive things on PlayStation, so on and so forth. Blah blah blah. Don't really care about PlayStation 3 if I'm honest. So finally, press conference gets good. They bring out the PS4, and then they go on to talk about the Sony video and music services and all the various things that it's going to do, and this and that, and a bunch of other things. But the main thing I took from this is I will not use any of those services because there are better alternatives, and the PlayStation 4 looks awesome. I think it looks so good. It's tiny compared to the goddamn VCR of the Xbox, and it reminds me of the PS2. You know, the revisions of the PS2 when it just kept getting smaller and more like a book. And this has got a kind of weird slant to it that doesn't make any sense unless, you know, the world shifts by 30 degrees or something silly. But I like it. I like how it looks a lot. And the pad looks interesting too. And everything I've heard about the pad looks pretty damn awesome. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on that, because I hated the PlayStation 3 pad. I think it's one of the worst pads ever made. And this one looks like it's fixing everything I disliked. So that is a great, great thing. So from that point onwards, they showed an IP called The Order 1886. It was kind of like a CG trailer of people in what looked like London with crazy Tesla cannon technology taking down monsters of the night, some kind of vampire-esque looking, you know, werewolfy supernatural elements to it. And it looked okay, but without any gameplay, you can't really say much because, you know, these trailers, every trailer looks okay. You know, it doesn't dictate if it's going to be a good game or not. So from that point, they went on to Infamous Second Son, which looks really, really nice on the footage that I saw. And my big problem with this game is I didn't like Infamous 1 and 2. They were open world games with special powers, and I've played so many of them games I just couldn't give a single fuck about them. But this one seems like it's having much more of a narrative, because it's between these brothers, and I don't know, the characters in it seem like it's going to be more character driven than perhaps open world driven, and I would really like a more linear, more focused version of that game, because as it stands it looks really good, but I'm not an Infamous guy, so it's not wowing me the way it's wowing a lot of people, although it did look really fucking nice. And Troy Baker, who's voicing everything now, is voicing everything in that game. He's even going to be the damn trees. It's just madness. But the next thing they showed was the new Killzone Shadowfall. There's a bit of different footage for this. It was in a forest and he was using this weird looking gun, and it looks kind of, I don't know, guerrilla-y, which is not meant to be ironic. It don't look like Killzone. It kind of looks, I don't know, it just looks like your generic Homefront-esque shooter with Hellgast in it. I'm not too sure what to think. Like, if I get a PS4, which I want to, it'll probably be with that game, but I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about that Killzone. It did not impress me at all. And, you know, visuals aren't enough anymore, because all the consoles are going to have very comparable visuals. Same with PC. PC is going to always look better, and hopefully these consoles will push PC to strive to look even better. So it's just very, very strange. So after that, there was the Dark Sorcerer, which was just weird. It was essentially, I think, is it Quantic Dream, the company behind Heavy Rain? They were showing off some new facial tech in this skit, this comedy skit, which wasn't funny. And that's the biggest problem with anything like that. If you do something that's meant to be comedic and it's not funny, you know, you've lost me and your audience there. But to some people, it might have been funny, because humour is very subjective. I just thought it was a waste of time. Show me games, don't care. Which was swiftly remedied by Transistor, which is the people behind Bastion's new game. This game looked awesome. I have no idea what it is, but it looks great. It's got a great colour scheme. It's got fantastic visuals. It sounds like it's got nice music. And it looks like a dungeon crawler-esque, you know. Is it isometric? No, it's not isometric. Like, kind of slanty, gauntlet-esque game like Bastion. It looks cool. I can't wait to see what that's about. So from that point onwards, they did this massive thing about the indie games, where a guy came out saying they're going to be helping the indie developers. They're going to make it so that they can get on the PlayStation, they can get supported and things. And I think this is a fantastic direction to take, because indie's important, man. Some of the future gems are going to be coming from these indie developers. These teams are going to grow up into the next Ubisofts, into the next Epics, into the next whatever you want to call it. Because I remember when Ubisoft was making shit games on the N64 and they were a joke company. So it just goes to show where these things come from. And I'm not saying indie games are a joke. I'm just saying that these are the people that are going to pave the way for better games. And they showed a bunch of different things which looked interesting, but the one that really stood out to me, because I was in tears, was Octodad. And I have no idea what this game is, but he was walking through this house, knocking everything off the shelves with like Havoc physics, and I thought it was hilarious. I thought it looked genius, and I want to play that game, because it just looks like the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen. And I was stoked when I saw that. Fucking Octodad. So good. So very good. But from that point onwards, they brought out Square Enix, and there was, I think, a video from Tetsuya Nomura, who, pretty important guy in that company if you know his heritage. And they showed that Final Fantasy Versus 13 has now become Final Fantasy 15, and they showed a lot of gameplay. And the gameplay looked really weird, really different, like a real-timey action RPG in a realistic-looking city with dragons and shit, and it was all, Uncharted scale of jumping on buildings and flying around and getting all crazy, and Michael Bay. And I thought it looked great. I've lost almost everything I adored about Final Fantasy post 10. So this direction to me is no more, stupid or welcome than any of the ones that have been previous. So this could really, really be something interesting. And I would love for Squaresoft, or Square Enix as they are now, to bring me back into the fold, because 13 just wasn't cutting it for me. And 13.2 was much better, but it's still not the same peaks back when they had, more limited technology, but better games. And there is a new Lightning game, which looks quite interesting too. I'm quite excited to see what that's about, because it's got a different combat system, and I'm all about these different combat systems, because I love RPGs. I am a JRPG fanboy at heart. I've just not had too many reasons to celebrate it recently. And then from that, they showed Final Fantasy XIV, which is online, and I couldn't give a single fuck, because it's an MMO. And then they did the Kingdom Hearts 3 reveal of, yo dogs, we're working on Kingdom Hearts 3, it's finally coming. And I had a little bit of a childish excitement moment when, it's Kingdom Hearts 3, finally, awesome. And they showed a little bit of gameplay, which just looked like Kingdom Hearts. And there are so many things they need to do to that game to kind of make it worthwhile after all the time that has passed, because the mechanics of the old game just do not cut it in today's gaming. They're not good enough. And I love Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts 2. I was a massive fan of those games, and I was one of the biggest proponents for trying to get the third one made. Like, I was fucking checking everything, pushing everything, like, come on guys, we need it. I got that secret ending for beating it on proud mode. I want to know what's happening. I want this game. And I want to work on it, but they need to improve it. Looks good, I'm excited, but there's not much to be said. It was like 10 seconds of footage and Tetsuya Nomura's Fringe. So there was a Mad Max trailer that was shown, and I had no idea what it was until it came on and it was Mad Max, and I was like, yo dog, it's Mad Max. I love Mad Max. It's a film from my childhood. I think it's fucking amazing. I would love to play a game. My biggest fear is that it's being developed by Avalanche, who are the people that did Just Cause, and I don't really think that team can make games. What that team can do is make a sandbox where you can do stupid things, and that does not directly translate into a good game to me. So I'm hoping that with a little bit more discipline and a little bit stricter game design, they can make something really special. Because if they make Just Cause in the universe of Mad Max, they're going to fuck it up. And I've already seen a story that I wasn't too sold on recently, where they said they didn't think the setting of Mad Max mattered, when the setting is everything. Fucking hell. But then we move into the most controversial and interesting and deceptive part of the Sony press conference, where they went on to announce that the PlayStation 4 will not put a restriction on used or rented games, which is amazing news. They then went on to say that you will not need a constant internet connection to play it, and pretty much all the things that Microsoft announced that were getting a lot of friction from the fan base because people don't want these restrictions. They won't want this fucking capitalist, well, not capitalist, or this communist approach in you can't do this with what you've paid for. And it got a massive clap and ovation, people going crazy. And it was one of those moments where you think to yourself, they've shown all these games that got kind of little bits of claps and stuff, and the biggest clap of this press conference so far is the fact that Sony are saying they are not doing anything. So to me, I just had the biggest bout of just, are we all insane? Because don't get me wrong, it's fantastic news that they're not following Microsoft into that redundant policy, but at the same time, they're announcing nothing. They're announcing something completely null. We are not doing what they're doing, and you're clapping that we're doing nothing. So to me, that is fucking stupid. But at the same time, I'm very glad that they're not getting the peer pressure of what Microsoft is fronting, because it's stupid. But then they went on to do the biggest slight in this entire press conference, in my opinion. While all the clapping was happening and everybody was like, fuck yeah, Microsoft, go suck my big Sony dick, they came out and said that online is no longer free. So the biggest component and proponent of Sony's entire battle against Microsoft has now been changed to mirror the exact same policy that Microsoft uses. And no motherfucker blinked an eye. They were too busy, yeah, Sony, give me that dick. Give me them balls. Like, guys, he's just said that the free online that everybody bigs up so much on this service is no longer free. And nobody cared. And it was genius. It was perfect. It was so well done. It was like fucking slipping a serpent into the coffin in Buried and ruining that film. I just keep kicking my damn keyboard. I'm so excited at how genius this move was. And they slipped it in perfectly and nobody batted an eye. I was the only person sat there thinking, well, I wasn't the only person, but I was sat in the room thinking, have they just fucking done what I think they've just fucking done? And they did. And people are only just realising, and I look at it like this. I don't mind paying for Sony's online service as long as they improve it. As long as they make it comparable to what Xbox Live offers, I think it's a good thing for everybody, and I don't mind paying because of how much you're going to get the use out of it. But if they don't have the chat support, which they never have had, because they had to patch it in and it was dog shit, if they don't have the server support, if they don't have the server-side stuff that Microsoft offers, what exactly are they selling you? Because before on the PlayStation Plus service, you got all these free games, and that was a really good thing. But now it's mandatory, so the free games thing isn't as sweet. You know, they need to come through with something, and I have no idea at this moment in time, but I have faith in Sony because I want them to win me back. I want them to give me a reason to want to buy their system and to want to be part of their economy again. But I'm still extremely jaded by how much they fucked up the PS3 at every single hurdle. And it took them years to get back any kind of footing. And everybody seems to forget this. But I don't, because I'm like a fucking elephant. And I'm really excited. I think they had a fantastic press conference, but it was so underhanded the way that they slipped in that at the end. And I'm curious to see what this means. But as it stands, the Sony press conference really impressed me. They didn't have as many games as I was hoping, but it seems like they're doing everything right by the consumer and by the developers, and that is a very big push and something that they got very wrong last year, which they're looking to improve. And a company that's willing to admit that they were wrong and improve it is a company that I want to keep my thumb on and look into, is this the one for me? Because there's no point in being a fanboy, guys, against anything. You need to look at it from the greater good. You need to look at it objectively and say to yourself, is this a service I want? Do I want to give these people my money? Do I want to encourage this service? And as it stands right now, Sony is making leaps and bounds from the mistakes that they've made in the past, and I am very excited to see where this leads. Also, guys, I missed two things on my Sony press conference because I didn't scroll the page correctly, and I missed them at the bottom. And the two things were Destiny was shown, which is the new game by Bungie that is cross-platform. It looks really, really interesting. And I've kind of noticed that, you know how we had the modern military shooter saturate everything in the recent generation, where it got to the point where you were so fucking sick of it, and it replaced the World War II shooter that did the generation before that? I think the new generation could be sci-fi, and I think that's a fantastic direction, because I'm still waiting for a first-person Mass Effect-esque game where you're on a ship, like a bounty hunter ship, going through the universe, doing jobs, doing quests, doing awesomeness, going to towns and crazy sci-fi Blade Runner type shit. I'm still waiting for that game. And Destiny isn't that game, but it's still pretty damn nice looking. It's going to be like an MMO. It's going to have those events that happen, those live events. I'm going to cover this in a video separately because it looks fucking stellar. And you can aim down your gun. You know, big fuck you to Halo. You can aim down your gun, thank Christ. But it looks delicious. I'm excited, and I'm going to cover it feverishly. So the final point is that the PlayStation, when I can find the damn thing, will launch like in the whole... I can't remember what they said, like fucking in the winter or something silly. They haven't said when it's going to launch, but a lot of people have speculated that it's going to happen in December, which means that they're going to be after the Xbox, which I think is a mistake personally because they did that last time. But this is the real kicker. They will be releasing for $399, £349 and €399. So once again, Europeans are getting fucked for no other reason than they're from Europe, and that is $100 cheaper than Microsoft's machine. £100 cheaper, €100 cheaper. And that is so big, I can't even begin to say. Like, it doesn't matter about the games at that point, it doesn't matter about the services or what they've brought to the table. That price range could literally be the make or break moment for these machines. And I think I think Sony has done something ingenious with making their console that, because they know from last generation they fucked up. Putting that price range they had on the PlayStation was so unrealistic, nobody bought it. And when nobody buys your machine, it doesn't matter how much potential you have, you'll never reach it until motherfuckers have got it. And that was the thing. This is so smart. I commend Sony for doing it. So that is the end of my Sony conference video. Thank you for watching, folks. I will be covering the rest of them very shortly, and hopefully this will stem some debate over what you felt in the press conferences and what you thought was good, what you thought was bad. But one thing I would like to do, if we can, folks, is we're all mature people here. It doesn't have to be my console's better than yours. If you're going to put heavy-hitting facts, please back them up with civil and concise arguments. Don't just turn this into, fuck me, fuck you, because I want to avoid that as much as I can. And you might be thinking, well, freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's not that. It's just I get so many comments of people riffing between each other that I spend more time reading other people's arguments, and it's a massive waste of time because you're both arguing the same points, and a lot of the time it's always personal. It's never objective. So the arguments are all fundamentally flawed because everybody has their own bias. You have to look at it and kind of separate yourself on a higher level, and that's not a pretentious thing. That's just literally, we are consumers here, guys. These are two rival companies that are fighting for our money. And we need to look at it like that instead of being, Microsoft's so fucking good. You get to pay for things and they steal your money. And you don't have to be that way, But anyway, thank you for watching. You take care now.